I am in serious seed raising mode at the moment. I have just 9 weeks to grow an entire stall's worth of fruit and veggie seedlings from seed for a kinder fundraiser. So I'm starting them all this week. While I'm at it, I thought it was worth showing you the method I use for making my own seed raising mix. It's really, really easy. I use just 4 ingredients. I use a standard pot to measure 1 part each of 3 of the ingredients and then half a part for the 4th ingredient, which I'll tell you in a minute. And the benefit of that is you can use whatever measure you like. So if you want to make a huge amount, just get a really big pot, and same again, 1 big pot full of each of the 3 ingredients and then half a pot full for the final ingredient. I am then going to plant out a whole lot of seeds and we can watch them grow. If you're new to this channel, I run a full garden tour every single month here in Melbourne, Australia. Hit the subscribe button if you want to follow along. Also, I will definitely be showing you the progress of all the veggies that I'm starting to grow today. And in 9 weeks' time, I'll tell you just how much money we've raised from growing everything from seed. The beauty of growing things from seed, 1, it's really satisfying. 2, it saves you a lot of money because there are heaps of things that you can actually plant straight from the fridge. So you can plant things like the seeds you find in your capsicums or your chilies. The reason you need to use a seed raising mix and not just any old soil is because it needs to have great drainage. It needs to retain moisture really nicely because if those seeds dry out, they won't germinate. A lot of seed raising mixes that you can buy straight from the nursery or the hardware store, they do work really well. The thing is, a lot of them don't have many nutrients in them because seeds are packed full of their own nutrients. So seeds don't need nutrients in order to sprout, but they will then need those nutrients later on. So the benefit of making your own, you can pack it full of good stuff. That way there's no rush once your seeds have sprouted to transplant them into their final position. You can keep them growing until they're really big and strong and ready to transplant. Should we do it? Let's go. So you'll notice I've got a mat down here behind me. It looks a bit funny. This is, yes, it's a child's mat that is designed to go underneath a high chair to stop all the food going on the floor. It's an old one, so I don't mind getting it dirty, and I've sort of repurposed it for gardening. It's just plastic. I'm going to mix all of my ingredients on here. It just makes it way easier than sticking them straight into a pot, and that way you can get a really good mix up. We're going to do 1 part of propagating sand. Sand will help you with drainage. Next up, I'm going to do 1 part of peat moss. You could also use coco coir. Helps retain moisture. It also aerates the soil. And I'm going to do 1 part compost. You can do 2 parts compost if you like. Now, compost sometimes will have really big chunks in it, so I'm going to use this tray as a sieve. The holes are probably a bit too big, but it's all I've got, so I'm just going to make sure there's no big chunks in there. And there's not. This looks like a really good quality compost. Yeah, this is already lovely and fine, which is great. Smaller sieve will get you better results. This is a bit too big. And finally, the last thing I'm going to add is worm castings. Worm castings are especially great if you're going to be growing things inside. They actually keep the aphids away. I'm not sure if that's scientifically proven, but I read it somewhere, I tried it, and I've never had aphid problems since. So I'm going to do half a part of organic worm castings in there. And then we're going to mix that all up. You can see if it's flat, it's really easy to mix it up nicely. I'm going to interrupt just for a minute here because I have since been reading up about peat moss and I've decided this is the last time I'm going to be buying it and using it because it turns out it's not great for the environment, which I didn't realise before I purchased this. Coco coir wasn't available at the time. Next time I'm going to make sure I can find it. So what I've learned is that the process of harvesting peat moss actually destroys the native habitat for a lot of animals the process also releases carbon monoxide. So there's a whole lot more to that. I'm going to chuck on my journalism hat and keep reading into it, and there might be a whole video on this for another day because I'm finding it all quite interesting. But I have decided this is the last time I'm going to be using peat moss. I don't recommend you guys use it either. I recommend you get the coco coir. Does the same thing, just better for the environment. If you hear any funny noises throughout the video, that's probably just my quality control manager over here who's watching to make sure I get everything right. Having a nice time, Lucy Bear? Yeah, I think that was a nod. It's now 5 days later. I can't believe how well everything is growing already. So many of them have sprouted and I didn't expect them to sprout this quickly. I'm going to show you exactly how they're going. But before I do, I just want to give you a couple of quick updates about the channel. The first is that I've got a new email distribution list. So a lot of people had been asking me exactly when my next garden tours were going to be uploaded. I try and get them done in the first few days of the month, but I'm not always that consistent. So if you want me to just send you an email when my garden tours are uploaded, I'll put a link in the description so you can leave your email address and you won't miss out on those updates. Okay, so here's truth time. There is no point just telling you that this seed raising mix works. I am also going to show you that this seed raising mix works, and it's actually worked too well. So you can see these are the most developed. These are Lebanese cucumbers, and as soon as I saw them poking through, literally the next day, I knew my mistake straight away. These are going to grow to maturity before it is warm enough for them to produce fruit. And not just my Lebanese cucumbers, also these ones, my zucchinis, over here, my pumpkins, and down here, even more zucchinis and pumpkins that are just too eager to get out of there. I genuinely wasn't expecting them to sprout this quickly, and because I was more focused on these guys, my tomatoes, that I knew were going to take longer to mature, I probably didn't think through the dates very well. Anyway, these are my tomatoes. Much tinier sprouts, but they are, you can see them reaching towards the window there. That's why it's so important for them to be in sun, otherwise they can get too leggy. You do need to watch them really closely. Ideally, I wouldn't have let these get this leggy, but I will be able to bury those stems a bit deeper. Now, here is another one that can take a really long time to grow. I also had basil in mind. Basil was one of the biggest sellers last year at the Kindy fundraiser, which is what I'm doing all this growing for. And so I wanted to make sure I had lots of luscious basil in time for the fundraiser, which is why I didn't really think through my timing of my cucumbers. Over here, things that are much better timed. You can see a whole lot of lettuces there, also reaching towards the sun. Beetroot. What's that one? Spinach. And the tiniest hint of a sprout cracking out of that fennel seed there. I've got more beetroot here, also reaching towards the sun. That's why you've got to watch them so carefully. If you're not starting seeds in the sun, if you're starting them in the dark, as soon as you get the tiniest little hint of something poking through, you need to find that window. Because if you leave it any longer, they're just going to keep on reaching and reaching, searching for a window. I have actually ordered a new greenhouse, which should be arriving today. So I'm hoping some of these produce won't be wasted, because I'm hoping I will be able to grow them to maturity in the greenhouse and just trick them into thinking it's warmer than it really is. Now out here, I've got a whole lot more lettuces growing. You can see I didn't get these into the sun quick enough either. And a lot of them are growing quite tall, reaching for the sun. I think I've probably caught them early enough that it'll be okay now that they are out in the sun. But yeah, it just shows you how quickly they've grown, and I just wasn't anticipating that. Under here in this greenhouse, this isn't the new one that I was talking about. There's another one that should be arriving in the mail. A couple of little sprouts, but most of these things were planted a little bit later. So they're still waiting to get going. If you are about to start your seeds, I just want to take you through some of the most important things that you do need to remember. So seeds are more precious than seedlings. They can die very easily if you don't really nurture them. So once you've got your soil right, the next most important thing is moisture. You need to make sure that soil stays moist. However, you don't want it to be too wet or they can drown. So I water every day, or at least I check every day. Feel the soil. If it's damp, it needs to be damp right on top. If it's not, I use a spray bottle because that's just a really gentle way of keeping the soil moist without mucking up the seed placement. If you do forget about your seeds for a day, it can be game over. So I like to leave mine in a really central position in the house until they've germinated. They don't need to be in sun before they've germinated. Most seeds anyway, read the packet, some are a bit different. So I like to actually put them in the kitchen or in the living room so that it's kind of a bit of fun every day. Check your seeds, remember to walk to them, and then by the time they have sprouted and germinated, you're in that habit of everyday checking and it makes the rest of the process easier. If you put them in a room that you can't see them, it's really easy to forget about them. So the next thing you need to know is as soon as those seeds have sprouted, they need to be moved into the sun, and they need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. So if you've got a great windowsill, that's an excellent spot to put them. If you don't, you might need to find a protected spot outside in the sun. When I say protected, you can cover it up just with a little bit of clear plastic, or you can buy a little greenhouse tub, which is a great way of keeping them warm and also in the sun. If you want to know exactly what seeds you can plant right now in Victoria or anywhere with a similar climate, I have uploaded a video just a couple of days ago exactly about that, what you can plant right now. I will put that link at the end of this video. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now.